I've always been skeptical about sharing this story because, honestly, I'm not sure if people will believe me. But here goes. It happened about 2 years ago when I was house sitting for my aunt and uncle. They live in this really nice big house out in the country, like the kind of place where the closest neighbor is a good 5-minute drive away. It's peaceful during the day, but at night, it's a whole different vibe. So, it was my second night there, and everything had been pretty uneventful. I'd spent most of the day lounging around, watching Netflix, and raiding their kitchen. By the time night rolled around, I was ready to crash. The guest bedroom where I was staying had these huge windows that faced the backyard, which is basically just a big, open field with some trees at the far edge. Around midnight, I woke up to this weird sound. It was like a soft tapping, almost like someone drumming their fingers on glass. I'm a pretty light sleeper, so it didn't take much to jolt me awake. At first, I thought it was just a tree branch or something hitting the window. But then I remembered there weren't any trees close enough for that. My stomach dropped a little, but I told myself to chill. Maybe it was just the wind. I rolled over and tried to go back to sleep, but the tapping didn't stop. In fact, it got more deliberate, like someone was knocking. I finally worked up the courage to open my eyes and look toward the window. Big mistake. Standing there, right outside, was this figure. I couldn't make out much because it was so dark, but I could see the outline of a person. They were just standing there, completely still, except for their hand tapping on the glass. My heart was racing at this point, but I didn't want to move. I figured if I stayed still, maybe they'd think I was asleep and go away. But then, they started whispering. I couldn't hear what they were saying at first, so I strained to listen. It was this low, raspy voice, and the words didn't make any sense, almost like they were speaking a different language. But then they said my name, clear as day, in this weird sing-songy tone. Sarah. I don't think I've ever been so scared in my life. I wanted to scream, but it was like my voice was caught in my throat. All I could do was lie there, frozen, as this thing kept whispering my name over and over. Eventually, the whispering stopped, and I heard footsteps walking away from the window. I thought maybe they'd finally left. But then I heard the back door rattle. At that point, I knew I had to do something. My aunt and uncle's house has this old school security system, and I remembered that the panic button was on the nightstand next to the bed. With shaking hands, I reached for it and pressed it. The alarm went off immediately, this loud, ear-piercing siren that seemed to shake the whole house. I heard the footsteps outside stop, and then everything went quiet. Too quiet. I stayed in bed, clutching my phone and the panic button, until the security company called. I explained what had happened, and they said they'd dispatch the police right away. When the cops arrived, they searched the property, but didn't find anyone. No footprints, no signs of forced entry, nothing. It was like whoever, or whatever, had been outside just vanished. The weirdest part? The next morning I found a small handprint on the outside of the window. It was too small to be an adult's, but it definitely wasn't a kid's either. It almost looked warped, like the fingers were too long and thin to be normal. I took a picture of it, but when I checked my phone later, the photo was gone. Just completely deleted. I haven't house sat for them since, and I honestly avoid that area whenever I can. My aunt and uncle think I just got spooked by a dream, or maybe an animal outside. But I know what I saw, and I still hear that voice in my nightmares sometimes. Sarah.